Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Elliot McMonagle, and I have decided to finally create this video for all of you who are interested in learning more about my transgender beginning story. I have recently created these little journals that I am going to be dispersing to people in my community who want to share their epic transformations. And so to start, I just want to mention that about 2 years ago, or maybe even more than that, I attempted multiple times at making this coming out video. It was a hot time to get online and be trans and share your story and get yourself out there. And it was a very emotional time for me. I felt a lot of things at the time. I was angry, I was sad, I was scared, I was baby trans. I didn't see a lot of my epic transformations quite yet. Or I did, but I also felt the extreme opposite of just the fears of being trans in this world. And so it was something that I put out there, but I feel like I have much bigger wealth of wisdom and knowledge just from these last 2 years of physically transitioning, emotionally, spiritually. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of come on here and share, that beginning story for me and where it all started for me, because I think that many times what is shared about our stories are about our childhood experiences and different memories that we've had. But that's not true for every person, and we all kind of have our own unique story. And that's what I'm really excited to share with you all, is that I do feel like I have a very unique coming into understanding more about myself, and I'm still doing that work. And so it all kind of ties together. So basically, if I were to come on here and tell you where it all started, this is the interesting part, is that there's multiple beginnings, but to help paint the picture as an artist, I was about 23 and I shaved my head. And this is the typical story that I tell people. And so it was like this moment of realization. I'm looking in the mirror at this new version of myself that doesn't have any hair, and I'm like, hey, there's my dude. Like, that's my guy. I felt almost within like 24 hours, 48 hours that I'm trans. And it was a huge moment of realization. And after I kind of spent some time with myself and with a healer, that I've had many memories stored within my cells, not just my memory, my mind, but my literal physical body has remembrance of some really powerful things that help me to better understand my transness. And so there's that aspect of my beginning story. But then when I look back at it all, I actually think that the beginning started even earlier than that, when I was on, I guess, my spiritual exploration of just, wanting to dive deeper inside of like my heart and what it is that I truly want to do on this planet and do in my life, and what's going to be meaningful and fulfilling and blah, blah, blah. And so on this path, I started getting connected to a psychic, and this really excited me. I had an experience with her, and it was great. It was like a 20-minute reading. And then from there, we stayed connected, and I took a psychic workshop with her. And that first one was just to learn about what your own psychic ability is. And I can go into a whole other video about that whole story. But I loved the class. I took her next class on past life regressions. And so during that class, we actually got to do a meditation where she guided us to meet a version of ourselves from a previous life. And there's my cat, Tiger. Hi, Tiger. And so during this experience, I said, I'm open to whatever. I've never had an experience like this before. I don't know what is true or what is not true, if anything's even going to happen, if I'm going to believe whatever happens, but I'm laying there. And she has us kind of look down at our bodies, and kind of take note of like what we're wearing, what we see, what we smell, what we hear. And I looked down and I saw like my shoes were either like boots or sandals. It wasn't super clear to me. And then I kind of went up and I had a skirt on, and then more like versus like really seeing my true top half, I just felt like I was this big, beefy, burly man. And it felt like I was this metal worker where I would, whatever, make tools and things like that. So I had this very laborious job and, probably just made enough to get by, but I worked a lot. And then the only other thing that came from that was the craziest kind of thing was like, I was holding this lantern and she had us kind of ask how we died in that experience. And I smelt fire, and I felt like, based on these little context clues, like I died in a house fire because I was walking towards my house and then I smelt the fire. So that's really like, it was a very short experience. At the time, I didn't really know very much about it. I felt internally from that experience like I possibly was a trans woman at that time. But that would have been a time period that you really were, especially how I was as like the manly man that I was. It wasn't like I was able to really express my femininity at that time. So anyway, that's kind of like my first kind of, I guess, trans, even slightly remotely, and I didn't really understand fully like how I really was that person until like even just this week that I'm posting this. So anyway, so that was interesting to say the least. And then I think, I don't know how much longer, if it was like months or something after that, was when I like shaved my head and had that realization. And so I just kind of, I just went through some things internally, just feeling like I wasn't really sure how to make sense of all of this, like especially for how I feel like I presented to other people, and I cared a lot about what other people saw in me and like if it made sense to them that I was trans or something. And so I was struggling in many areas of my life during this time, just financially and just like in the world, just mentally not doing well. And so another part of my beginning of understanding my transness or my, trans identity was I had that psychic. She reached out to me. We hadn't really been talking in a while. I would go to her for certain things or ask her to do readings. But I just, like, I didn't have any money and I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't really getting out of bed and getting myself the help that I needed. And she, I guess, sensed that, and she reached out to me, and it was like my first finally just telling someone like, I'm really not doing well, but I don't know what to do. And she offered me to do a inner child healing that would be pretty extensive. And I didn't have funds at the time, but she did like an exchange with me. I'm so grateful for it, because during this experience, so it's literally from birth until like wherever I was like 23. And so we went through every single year, but in the beginning you start like in almost like 6 months, like months at a time. And so what happened in the first like session, I think, was how I came into this life and like what that birthing, because she can even go into like my soul or my body, like when I'm like in my mother's womb. And so what she was able to receive, it was actually before I went into my mom's womb in this lifetime, was I was this young boy, and she explained it, and I could feel like this was what was like, this was true for me. So I was this young, maybe 8 or 9 year old in this forest running from people that were coming and attacking me. And I was, getting away from them, and I jumped off the ledge. And as I was jumping was basically when I died, I like would have crashed to the ground and I would have died. And so it was about me going from that lifetime, and I directly went into my mom's womb, which she explained doesn't always happen that way. It's not always how our souls like come to their next life, and that just happened to be like how it was for me. And so there were these feelings I had even as an infant about like feeling maybe upset or angry or worried that like I didn't get to say goodbye to my mom from the previous life, and also that I was doing this all over again, like I was in this unfamiliar place and yada yada. So like I had a lot of anger coming into this life. And then when I came out, throughout the healings, she was able to identify these memories, these core memories that I had in my body, where I'm a baby and I'm being washed, and I can sense that I don't have a piece of me on my physical body that I used to have, which would have been my penis. And so it was really interesting, because then there were like these, as we were doing it, like even as I'm getting to be like 2 or 3, and I'm watching my older brother, who's 3 years older than me, like stand and pee, and I'm watching him, and I'm like, well, why can't I do that? Why can't I stand and pee? And I look down and realize, oh yeah, I don't have the same equipment, I guess, as him. And it made me realize like those were things like as a child, like I remember now, like these memories kind of came back up and I was able to remember. And so there were all these little nuances of things that happened throughout my childhood. And then as I started growing and developing and understanding like the things that I like or don't like about what I wear, and how other people treat me based on, how they perceive my identity to be, that it made me really frustrated. It made me really kind of angry, and not really understanding like how I can actually be myself. I never really understood that. I always felt like other people knew who they were, and I'm just over here just kind of existing, but not feeling totally at home within my body. And so, yeah, it was like, I feel like that was really truly more of the beginning to be able to really put the pieces together around like how I really, where like truly deeply where these feelings were coming from, and like that gave me so much clarity and gave me so much like comfort in knowing that like this is something that I really truly have been feeling for a long time, like much longer than I really even felt like I realized at 23 or whatever. So that to me is my pretty unique way of my beginning story, because even though I'm 2 years in, those were those beginning parts that really started to, I guess, put the beginning pieces together, put the framework around my life that started to really like actually make sense around like how I was actually feeling inside, because I don't think I had quite the words or the deeper understanding. And like I, like many people, I also felt like I just needed to hear more stories too, of like understanding like what other people were going through. So I went to a support group, and that also helped me to identify like the way that I was feeling inside, and that it was normal and natural, and that there were other people that had been doing this for years and years and years. And just to be able to like talk through different things, different worries, different questions that I had, all of these things have helped me to understand myself so much more. And so I felt like wanting to reshare this story and just share too, like how impactful it has been on my life, that I actually just completed 2 years of a hypnotherapy program where I actually learned how to like guide other people to see their past lives, and be able to begin like different healings that they're looking for in their lives in many different ways. And so I thought this would also be a great way to share that this is something that I am able to support others in now. If you are interested in experiencing this for yourself and you want to dive more into like the inner soul codes or soul rememberings or memories that may be deeply affecting the way that you feel and are experiencing your life today, they are very real. I just want to put that out there right now. There may be people here that are going to see this and think it's a bunch of fluff or whatever the case might be, but I think there's enough of us now that are really having these very real, true, tangible experiences that like the spirit world is so freaking real, and it is deeply impacting our physical lives, not just in an ethereal, like conceptual kind of way, but in a real, tangible kind of way. So just know that there are people like me. There are many of us who have the training, have the skills, and also have like the practice and the know-how to